Apple just shook up its own iPad lineup. The new iPad Air is so good that it now begs the question, who needs the iPad Pro? My name is Ashish, and for the past couple of years, I've been using this 2018 iPad Pro 12.9 inch. So let's try and see how the equation changes with the new iPad Air. This is the iPad Air in its 4th generation, and more importantly, it is the first device ever to feature the brand new A14 Bionic chip, even before this year's iPhones. This is big news since Apple has left almost no stone unturned when it comes to the iPad Air. The A14 Bionic chip is supposedly up to 40% faster than the A12 in the previous gen Air, whilst offering 30% faster graphics performance. It's also Apple's first 5nm chip and has a mind-boggling 11.8 billion transistors. If you want to truly visualize this, I suggest watching the 2013 movie Jobs. When you see the rudimentary transistors and logic boards that started the Apple juggernaut, you will come to appreciate what progress a processor like the A14 Bionic truly represents. The design is borrowed from the iPad Pro, and you'll be forgiven if you mistook this for the 2018 11-inch iPad Pro. The screen is in fact almost as big as that tablet at 10.9 inches. One thing that makes the Air stand apart is the color choices. Where the iPad Pro comes in rather somber shades, the iPad Air comes in pastel colors and looks really good at it. The new green and blue shades easily brighten up this mid-level iPad. So besides the all-screen design, the iPad Air also features a Touch ID sensor built into the power button. It is a superb move and is very convenient, especially when using the iPad as a tablet on its own and without a keyboard. Sure, both Face ID and Touch ID together would have made an even more killer combo, but credit where credit's due. I find the Face ID of the iPad Pro to be really convenient and is a better solution most of the time. But there are situations with an iPad, such as when you're about to doze off and want to play an audiobook or video in the background whilst it's sitting on a bedside table, where you wish you had Touch ID instead. Really, it's a toss-up, and I have Touch ID on my MacBook Pro and never found that to be an issue. Now, Apple has made the new iPad Air compatible with the 2nd generation Apple Pencil, complete with its magnetic dock on the side of the iPad, so you can charge and store the Pencil at the same time, iPad Pro style. Apple has also made the Air compatible with both iPad Pro keyboards, the Smart Keyboard Folio and the Magic Keyboard. You also get stereo speakers in landscape mode with this mid-level iPad, though this is still not a quad speaker setup like the Pro models. And last but not the least, USB Type-C is finally here in the iPad Air, opening new possibilities in terms of connections and expansion that was just not possible previously. Really, the only thing separating the iPad Air from the iPad Pro now is the absence of the Pro's 120Hz display and the ProMotion tech that comes with it. And they run different processors, with the Air surprisingly getting the newer processor. Storage still is limited to 256 GB, unlike the Pros that go on until 1 TB. Other Pro features like the LiDAR scanner and the wide-angle cameras are frankly superfluous and not really used that much on iPads. So why would you not buy the iPad Air and spend a lot more on the Pro? Well, for one, if you do a lot of video editing on apps like LumaFusion, you need all the space you can get, especially when shooting 4K video. Anything less than 512 GB really feels limited, and since the iPad doesn't yet allow editing off external hard drives, it's crucial that you order the storage you need from the start. Secondly, the 120Hz display of the iPad Pro is no gimmick. In fact, it is so good that after using it and getting used to it, you will find it difficult to go back to 60Hz screens and even to a MacBook Pro. The benefit of 120Hz is much more apparent on a large tablet screen than it is on a phone. And most importantly, although the A14 Bionic chip is the latest and hasn't been tested yet, the A12X and A12Z Bionic processors are 8-core processors with much beefier GPUs as opposed to the 6 cores found in the A14. They have also outperformed the A13 chip in many benchmarks and are much more suited to desktop style tasks and heavy lifting. Whilst it's still early to say how the A14 will stack up against the A12 twins, I'm fairly confident they will not be outperformed by it, especially in conjunction with the higher amount of RAM available with the Pro models. Unless a future teardown tells us that the Air has also got the 6 GB RAM upgrade. The point I'm trying to make here is that the X and Z class of Apple chips are not directly comparable to the standard iPhone chips and offer much more robust performance for that specific set of users that demands it. A little bit about the pricing. Here are the USA and India prices for the new iPad Air. The disparity between the two regions is between $100 and $150, which is not too unreasonable given higher differences amongst more expensive Apple products. Compared to the smaller 11-inch iPad Pro, that iPad starts at about the point where the iPad Air tops out, with prices ranging from $858 for the 128GB Wi-Fi only model and going all the way up to nearly $1,600 for the cellular variant. Now, for the past 5 years, much of the tech world and Apple themselves have been trying to project and evaluate whether the iPad and especially the Pros can be used as laptop replacement machines. I can tell you from experience, as I have been using both the iPad Pro and a MacBook Pro 15-inch, that it cannot simply replace the MacBook. I wish it could, but when it can't do simple things like Chrome browser extensions and you need to connect to a remote desktop just to run these, you start to see that you will stumble before you start to run if you make the iPad your only computer, especially if you're into content creation of some sort. This is an important consideration, and really you have to compare the reliability and predictability of Mac's Finder to the Files app on the iPad to be able to see how much ground iPad still has to cover to be considered an equal. Just as an example, I've taken the iPad on a wildlife photography trip, and when we had 2 full SD cards to copy and backup, the iPad took so long and didn't show a progress bar that I was about to give up. The Mac progress bar would have shown this easily and predictably. Sure, there are faster SD card readers that may have helped reduce the bottleneck, but at times like this, you wish you had a good old Mac or PC. Oh, and I'm still waiting for the day when you would be able to connect an iPad directly to a printer via USB and print something, as you can with a computer. Whilst we're on this topic, let me add that if you're willing to dig deeper and look for workarounds, then there are ways to run Windows or Linux systems and access your Mac computer remotely from the iPad. And depending on the route you take, the responsiveness will vary. So if you only need to access the odd extension on Chrome once in a while, this can work. And if you have enough storage capacity, there are some excellent video editing apps like LumaFusion that will suffice for most people's editing needs and can even export your work into Final Cut Pro on the Mac for further editing seamlessly. Now, this is exactly the point where I must mention the iPad's strengths, and most of them apply to the iPad Air. For most people who do everyday things like web browsing, YouTube, Netflix, word processing on their computers, the iPad is more than capable. Reading and browsing content and consuming media is truly where it shines, and there's little to beat it in this regard. It is snappy and always on and ready to go. It's light and portable, being essentially a pane of glass that can transform into whatever app you're using. It's the best photo album for sharing and enjoying with people, the few times we still do that in today's times. And for the most part, the desktop class Safari browser is nearly as good as the Mac counterpart. Oh, and the battery lasts forever, certainly a lot longer than my 15-inch MacBook Pro. So the iPad Air. This is best value iPad in years, and if you were waiting for this update, pre-book yours sooner rather than later. Thanks for watching till the end, and please subscribe if you found this content helpful. See you in my next one.